Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. It's possible to enhance the look, bring out detail and colour in a variety of subjects with the right lighting technique. This picture was achieved with dark field illumination. All the light is coming from behind the subject, yet the background remains dark. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay. So what I've got set up so far is this table, and in front of that I've just placed this tripod. Now, as usual, I'm going to be using a full frame digital SLR to capture the image, and this will have a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it. On the top here I've got a flash sync trigger, which is also capable of controlling the energy in the Studio Flash. The camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. Okay, so I'll just pop this camera on the tripod. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all the light that I'm going to be using to capture the image is going to be coming from behind the subject. So that is what I'm going to set up now. So on this pantograph that I have attached to the ceiling of the studio, I have a Profoto D2 flash head, and on the front of the flash head here I have a 4-foot by 6-foot softbox. Okay, so I'm just going to orientate the light so that it's pointing at the camera, like so. Are. So that's more or less in the right position. Now the D2, the flash head that I'm using, is 1000 joules, so it does have quite a lot of energy. So we'll see how we go with that, but initially I'm just going to be using it at an energy level of 5, which is about halfway through the range. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is just set up the orchid on the table here as the subject. Here we go. So I'll just place that about there somewhere. And with that in position, the next thing I'm going to do before I actually turn on the flash is just to take an exposure just to make sure we're not getting any contamination from the house lights. So I'll just set up the shot. So looking through the viewfinder, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just wind up the camera on the center column until the lens is just about at the same level as the flowers. There we are, somewhere around there. I think that's more or less in focus. And at the moment the lens is still on a wide angle setting, which is what I'm going to use for the initial exposures anyway. Okay, so with that set, what I can do is turn the camera on, like so. And I'll make sure the flash head is turned off, which it is. And you can see now the settings that I've got on the camera. So it's in full manual mode. I'm using a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second, which is the flash sync speed for that camera, ISO 100, and I've initially got an aperture of f8. So with these settings, I'll just grab an image and hopefully it will be a blank frame, which it is. So that just ensures that any light that we add now from here, from the flash, will be the only light which is affecting the subject. Right, so with that done, now I'll turn on the head, the back there, like so. And as I said earlier, just at an arbitrary level, I'll just grab an image and see what we get. Okay, so initially we're getting a reasonable exposure. The background doesn't look like it's too far burnt out. The flowers are a little dull. But the other thing that you can notice here, of course, is that the background is white. And we're using dark field illumination. So the actual field of view that I'm going to use for the picture needs to be dark. Now, in order to do that, what I'm going to use is a flag. So on this C-stand, I've just got a couple of bits of black cloth. And what I'm going to do is just place these at the back here somewhere, fairly close to the softbox. And this will form the background. Now, in order to get this into more or less the right place, what I'm going to use is live view in the camera. That way I'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'll just start that up. There we are. And with that set, I'll just zoom that in a little. In fact, I'll zoom it in all the way to the 70mm end. And you can see that that is actually not bad. If I just take it out ever so slightly, you can see the edge there in the picture. So if I just move this a little bit further into the frame, like so. There we are. And possibly a little bit further up, just like that. There we are. So now when I zoom it all the way in, I get a completely black background, which is what I want. Okay, so with that done, I can dispense with live view and grab another image. Okay, so this is now starting to come together. You can start to see that we've got a dark background here. I need to reframe the image a little. I think the plant in total is a little bit over to the right-hand side of the frame. So I'll reset that, and at the same time I'll also increase the exposure by about 2-3 stops, something like that. 3 stops, we'll go with that. So first of all, I'll just set the exposure by selecting that head, adding 3 stops of energy, and we'll just reset where the plant is in the frame. Okay, so with those bits done, we'll grab another image. So now you can see that the exposure on the plant isn't bad, but the background is no longer dark. Now this is all down to flare. We've got an awful lot of white space here on the softbox, and all this is radiating straight into the lens. Even though it's not actually forming part of the image, it is degrading the image that we've got. So I need to use one of these. Now this is an aperture mask. And basically it's just a piece of card with a hole cut in it, and this hole matches the aspect ratio of the sensor in the camera. Okay, so with the dark side of the card towards the subject, I'm just going to position this about here so that it cuts out all of the light apart from the subject that we're interested in. Okay, so I'm just going to use yet another C-stand. Pop that about there. I'll just slide this on, like so. Now again, getting this in exactly the right position is a little tricky, so what I'll do is once again use live view. So with live view on, I can move the card until it's just about in the right place, which is about there, I think. So once I've done that, I can again get rid of live view, and we'll just grab another image. There. Now you can see that the background is a very good black, and yet the exposure on the orchid is still very good. So what we'll do is just zoom into that and just check the focus, which looks pretty good to me on the main subject there. Yeah. Okay, I think that image is looking reasonably good. I'm quite pleased with that. But just to show what you can do, I'll just reverse this aperture mask so that the white side is pointing at the subject, which will reflect some of the light from the softbox back onto the front of the subject. Now, the orchid that I'm using at the moment in here is translucent, so a lot of the light will come through the actual petals. But by front lighting it in effect as well, what will happen is it will fill in some of the shadows, which will change the amount of contrast you get in the image. Okay, so I'll just slide this off, turn it round and slide it back into position again. There we are. Now obviously that's going to add to the exposure, so I'm just going to take the energy down by 1 stop to start with, just to see what happens, and we'll just grab that again. Okay, and you can see from this that it has filled in a lot of the detail. So this is what we had with the black side pointing towards the subject, and this is what we've got with the white side. Now I actually prefer this one, so I think it's this one that I'll be going forward with into Photoshop, just to do a little bit of post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is just make a duplicate of the file so that I can edit the duplicate and leave the camera original alone. Now the way I tend to do that is just to go onto the layer here and just right click that, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll call this Orchid Edit. Okay. And you can see that we've now got another file at the top, Orchid Edit, so I can close down the camera original. There we are. So this is what we will be editing. Right, so we've previously established that the background here is black to all intents and purposes. You can see on the RGB levels that the background is ever so slightly not black. So the first thing I'm going to do is just change that to complete black by going to Edit, Adjustments, Levels, and I'll just set a new black point. So I'll click on the black point cursor there, and I'll just click anywhere in the background, like so. And that's just made a minute change just to make sure that everything is now completely black, which it is. Okay, so now with that done, I can look at the image and just decide what it is that I want to do. Now the first thing I think I might want to do is just get rid of this flower here because I think it's a little distracting to the overall composition. And the other thing that I might want to do is just get rid of this stem as well. So in order to do those two things, what I'm going to do is add another layer, like so, and literally paint these out with black. So making sure that black is selected as the foreground colour. I'll grab a paintbrush, make that maybe a little bigger, a little harder, and just so I can see what I'm doing, I'll just zoom in to that point. There we are. And with that black selected, I'll just paint that through, like so. I'm going to do this relatively quickly. You would probably take a bit more care, but you get the idea. There we are. Now just to move around the image, I'll just hold down the space bar, and then that allows me to pan around the image. Let go of the space bar, and I'll just come to this stem, and I'm just going to take the stem out from about this point. Once again, we'll just pan around the image until we get to the other part that I want to take out, which is here. Just get rid of the support. When I get close to the plant, I'll just make the size of my brush a little smaller, possibly a little harder. There we go. So with those bits done, I'll just zoom back out again, and we'll just finish that off by making a bigger brush and just painting the rest of that out. So with those few alterations made, the only other thing that I want to do is just address this bit on this petal here. There appears to be some damage to the petal, so what I'll do is just select that layer and just use the healing brush tool, reasonable size, like so. And I'll just pick a point, so hold down the Alt key and just quickly erase those minor blemishes. There we are. There, right. So I think finally I'll just select a crop. Now I'm using this for video, so I'm going to use a specific ratio, 16:9. There we are. And what I might do is just bring that in ever so slightly. I might just rotate it a bit as well. Just like that. Maybe bring that in a bit more. There we are, that's looking good. Just commit to that. And there we have it. So by using the technique of dark field illumination, I've been able to bring out the texture and the quality of colour in these very delicate orchids. And I think the overall effect has turned out extremely well. Okay, well I hope you enjoyed watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.